Alright, hey there folks, welcome to my review, my recap, my discussion, my ramblings of Gozyuger episode 31. So, this episode was titled, I Am Tyranno, The Will to Save the World. And this episode, I've got some small nitpicks with what happened in this episode, although I should have seen it coming with Gozyuger doing the sort of the 2 to 3 part storylines. But Ryuki is finally back on the team, and that's kind of a shame because I thought how they were setting it up in the previous episode is that he would have left the team a little bit longer, but he was only out of the team for like 2 to 3 episodes, unfortunately, well, 2 episodes. And I thought the way they were setting up, he'd leave the team for a little bit longer, but hey, it is what it is. So this episode, Ryuki finally joins the team. He sort of reclaims his faith back in Sword, and he's willing to start over again to sort of become the number one as well. So the whole premise of this episode is that Horo gets sick from eating some expired food. He gets rushed to the hospital. This is where we finally get to meet Ryuki's father that we've heard about all the way since back at the start of the series, where he's this professional doctor. And then we get Shoko, the maid, getting a name drop in this week's episode as well. So that's pretty cool. I doubt we'll see her again, but she gets name dropped in this week's episode. But you have in this episode Ryuki's father getting turned into the monster of the week, the number one surgeon. And there are some fun gags within this episode, like it's sort of like a competition for the surgeon or for the doctor operation. So you have this scene where Sumino and I believe Ryuki, they're trying to figure out the best way to sort of run the quote-unquote surgery for Horo in this episode, where you have the number one surgeon, Ryuki's father, wanting to use a chainsaw, but then you have this scene where Sumino and that take out this giant comedically fashioned needle or syringe, which was kind of funny as well. But then they get captured because they lose by default apparently, and there's a scene where they're going to get their heads drilled open in the end, but they get saved by Mashiro in the end. So this episode, you had Ray showing up in this week's episode where he shows up at the hospital, and he has this really interesting line where he says, this place brings back some really interesting memories. And that line, it did raise a few eyebrows when he said that, because you're wondering what they, because he talked about some interesting memories. Well, what you find out at the end of the episode is that when Sumino is doing some research on the grey-eyed man, she finds out at the hospital is that Ray used to be a surgeon that worked for, and that kind of ties into her sister Otto going missing all those years ago. So Ray used to be a surgeon that worked at the hospital, and then, he disappeared and all that stuff went down in the end. So it looks like next week's episode we're going to have Sumino probably confronting Ryuki with what happened with his past and stuff like that. We'll get more of an answer to with everything going on. And the team will finally learn about his past, or probably just mostly Sumino, because she's the detective wanting to get some answers. But hopefully he comes clean to the team with everything going on. So Ray turns into GozyuTyranno in this episode for a brief period of time. And although Ryuki gets his powers back, a lot of people have been wondering or have been asking, well, what happened to Asam? Well, I guess Asam is probably trapped within the Calamity Ring, and we probably won't see him until he gets finally free, along with probably a bunch of other victims who are probably in those rings as well, no doubt about it. So I guess Asam went back to his home planet, and he'll never be seen ever again until probably the finale. But he does get brought up in this episode. They do wonder where he is, but I guess he won't get brought up ever again now that Ryuki's back on the team. So I guess that moment was very short-lived. So Ryuki finally gets his powers back. He reclaims his faith in Sword and defeats his father. And we get this scene where he pilots his Sword, and we have Mashiro giving him a gift of the blue ring, or the blue Zyuranger ring, and this is where we see the combination between Zyuranger and Sword Tyranno, and it looks really freaking awesome. It's probably going to be one of the thumbnails of the video, depending on what thumbnail wins the thumbnail war in the end. But we do have this awesome combination that looks really freaking awesome. A shame the toys can't look that cool. The Sword is like not that movable, so unfortunately it doesn't look as cool as that unless you get I guess the candy toys. then it's got all that bending and sort of articulation. But yeah, so Ryuki is finally back on the team. He's joined the team again. You have this scene where Ryuki tells Horu to keep all these rings, and he doesn't need them back because he says he's going to start over again, like I mentioned at the start of the video. And Horu does give like a smart ass comment by saying like, look, I wouldn't even give them back to you even if you asked nicely. So I kind of like that relationship between the two of them. But Ryuki is back on the team, and yeah, I thought that would last a lot more longer with how they were setting it up, with how dramatic episode 30 was with Gozyuger. But yeah, he's back already. But like I said earlier in the start of the review, Gozyuger does these like 2 to 3 part storylines within the show, and then it looks like Ryuki came back already. So I was wondering how long it would last until he joined the team again, and I had hoped that it would last more than like 2 to 3 episodes, like maybe like leading into like the final round of the show, but it looks like he came back already, so it is what it is. I feel like there was more potential of Ryuki leaving the team a lot more longer than that, but when Asam got jobbed out and I saw the next week's episode preview of Ryuki at the hospital, I thought it was probably only inevitable that Ryuki would probably be joining the team once again, which isn't a bad thing. I'm just hoping that Ryuki has more of a character moment because, you know, a lot of people's complaint with Ryuki is his whole personality, his whole stick is devoting himself around Tegasort. That's his thing that he does. Like, he doesn't stand out too much on his own apart from being like a Tegasort worshipper, where the other Gozyugers have other personalities and quirks and calms about them that make them stand out. But Ryuki is just like, I love Tegasort, that's my stick. It's what I do. I worship him like God, and yeah. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Ryuki is going to get more development moving forward. We'll see what happens in the end, but overall, fun episode of Gozyuger, and it's definitely setting up some big things later down the line. So, overall, what did you guys think of Gozyuger episode 31? What did you guys think of episode 31? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Tell me in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions, and with that said, I'll catch you guys later. Peace out, take care, bye.